Welcome to the Play Action Podcast. It's Dave Farrell alongside Matt Brown and Joe Fortenbaugh. This podcast is brought to you by SBRodds.com. If you want to check out all of these lines that we're talking about every week, the link is right below us. And, of course, we encourage you to subscribe to this and give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Give us your comments as to what you think of our analysis each week. We appreciate your feedback. And, of course, again, all of these lines are changing in real time, and we're going to give you the very best information that we can every single week. Now, this first game...
Hold on, Dave. Before we get started here, do you remember last week when I told you two donkeys that Auburn was gonna beat Alabama? Do y'all remember that? Do you remember that? I'm just wondering. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Good pick.
Yeah.
You got one right. Way to go, Matt. You got one right and 15 wrong. All right.
Whoa, with the one right thing here. What's going on?
Okay, can we talk about the NFL slate for Week 13? Let's dive right into it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your precious time here, Dave. I understand. Such a busy
It's not
man.
my precious time. It's you sitting here patting your own back while everyone's trying to watch a podcast about this week, not how awesome you were 7 days ago. Let's get down to it.
Hey,
I have no problem saying it's my precious time, and I'm not necessarily interested in his Auburn pick all that much.
Yeah,
it was a nice pick.
You were right 5 days ago.
Hey.
Way to go, Matt. You want to dedicate another 10 minutes to stroking yourself on the back?
Hey, well, let's tell Eddie Vedder wannabe over there to leave me alone. Let's get down to where we need to be.
All right. So week number 13 of the NFL is here. First game up, a little bit tricky, off the board in most places as we record this podcast right now. Tampa Bay and Green Bay, of course. The notes here, Matt, is that Jameis Winston may be coming back, which would greatly potentially affect this line.
Yeah. I mean, he's likely to be back, but it hasn't been officially announced. And so that's why we're sitting where we sit right now with basically this game off of the board here. Doug Martin also is going to be out with a concussion. Doug Martin really hadn't done anything for that offense anyway, so not that big of a deal there. On the Packers side of the ball, gave the Steelers all they could handle. The Steelers did get it done, though, in the end, but they were able to put up a bunch of offense. So I don't know if that was just a weird thing or maybe they figured something out along the way here. Ty Montgomery did sit out. Jamal Williams started. Went for 135 yards from scrimmage on 25 touches. So he looked pretty good as well there against that Steelers defense. Has been real good all year.
So, Joe, looking at this game, I mean, are you interested in playing this one if we find out Jameis Winston is back one way or the other? Any interest in this game whatsoever when we actually do have a line for it?
I'm hoping Winston comes back. I'm hoping the line reflects that, and then I'd like to take the Packers in that situation. I think right now the Buccaneers are a better team with Ryan Fitzpatrick. It might sound crazy to say, but Winston's had a pretty miserable season, and again, he looks to be one of those guys. We saw it in the New Orleans game before he left with the injury. He still hasn't really bought into the idea that he is the face of a franchise, and he has to operate at a different level than he did at Florida State. Enough with the goofing around, enough with starting fights on the sidelines. You're supposed to be the leader, and you have not gotten that message yet. So I'd like to see him under center because this is a Buccaneers team that's covered one spread in their last 7 road games, and I think they're just about ready to pack it in on a season that has been a major disappointment. Meanwhile, Brett Hundley, at the very least, is going to continue to work and play as hard as humanly possible because he wants to put some good tape out there for a job in the future. I'd lean slightly to the Packers, but this isn't a game I love, Matt.
And listen, the Packers aren't, by the definition here, and by the numbers, aren't out of it yet. I mean, if he could squeak out a couple of wins, you get Aaron Rodgers back, and then maybe there's an outside chance you could still get in here. I'm going to tell you guys what I learned whenever I was in medical school when I was going to be an orthopedist, is that Jameis Winston has
Wait, is that true?
Yeah, that was right after he made that Auburn pick. They gave him an honorary doctorate to be an orthopedist.
So
you don't even need to pass the medical boards if you're in Louisiana.
Well, this is what I learned. This is what I learned playing drunken operation in college. Whenever we were doing that, is I don't know about you guys, but like Jameis Winston's been sitting out with a shoulder injury. That's a pretty important thing to throw a football. So for me, I'm like you, Joe. I kind of hope they put him back in there.
Yeah,
because that seems like a pretty awesome spot to target right here. A quarterback who's been sitting out because his shoulder doesn't work properly. That seems like a pretty terrible injury to have if you're a quarterback in the NFL. So yeah, I hope this reflects that whenever it does come out, because I would definitely take Green Bay at home.
Yeah, this is one of those spots, though, where I don't really trust Brett Hundley yet. He looked good in that game against the Steelers, but the Steelers tend to play down to their competition a little bit. I'm just not sold on the Packers and Hundley just yet.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that you guys aren't sold because y'all both called him Brent, and his name's Brett. So I mean, listen,
Hundley, you're not listening. Brett Hundley.
So we obviously don't care about this guy whatsoever because we can't even say his name.
Why would I? All right, Minnesota and Atlanta. This is actually an interesting game. Also in the NFC, Minnesota, NFC North. crushing it right now. Atlanta's starting to look much better in the NFC South. They look like they have some legs under them. And this line reflects it, Matt. Atlanta favored by 3 in some places, 2.5 in others. Total in this one, 47, 47.5. What are the notes that we need to know?
Yeah, like you mentioned, Lions beat the Lions on Thanksgiving, did this Vikings team. Case Keenum, with all the threats of maybe, will he start? Will he not start? Maybe he'll get benched. 21 of 30, 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown as well. The job is his. They don't need to worry about this any longer. This Vikings team is humming along. On the Falcons side of the ball, Devontae Freeman did sit out with a concussion, but hey, Tevin Coleman stepped right in. As we said, a real talent in the backfield there for this Falcons team. So he picked up right where they left off. No problem there. Corner Desmond Trufant, though, did suffer a concussion in this game. And the reason I bring that up is there are 2 very good receivers there for the Vikings, and Desmond Trufant is a real difference maker in the secondary for this Atlanta team. If he's out with a concussion this week, that could be a big, big difference. And Mount St. Julio finally erupted, 12 catches, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was just unbelievable what he was able to do. Joe, I'm kind of wondering if this Falcons offense hasn't started to kind of figure it out.
On the surface, you say 3 straight wins. You see the explosion this past week, and you think, here comes Atlanta putting it together at the right time of the season. Dig just a little bit deeper, and you'll see those 3 wins came against, 1, a Dallas Cowboys team that was without Ezekiel Elliott. And in their 3 games without Ezekiel Elliott, they failed to score 10 points in each game. And Jason Garrett in that game against Atlanta didn't have the wherewithal to put a double team on Adrian Claiborne, who recorded 6 sacks. Bad coaching. Number 2, road win at Seattle in primetime. Very impressive. No Cam Chancellor, no Richard Sherman, but still always impressive to get a road win in Seattle. Win number 3, Tampa Bay. Not exactly the most impressive of 3-game winning streaks. Give them credit, but I'm not going to give them too much. Minnesota's got 10 days to get ready for this game coming off the Thursday nighter they played, or Thursday afternoon they played in Detroit, and they've covered 39 of their last 54 point spreads. People don't realize how often Minnesota puts money in your pocket. I'll take the Vikings here plus the 3. Hopefully I can get a 3 in the hook at some point. I like them to win the game outright. Good defenses travel, and that's what the Vikings have, a good defense.
Matt, you mentioned that Julio Jones finally exploded last week, and trust me, I've got him on my season long. He crushed it for me, but you put Xavier Rhodes in his face, and he has to face this Minnesota defense, which is a huge step up from that Tampa Bay defense. Are the Falcons going to be able to continue this offense rolling, or does Minnesota go into Atlanta and shut them down?
So I already bet this on the Minnesota side, and I did it with the anticipation that Desmond Trufant's going to be out of this game. And I think if that's the case, that's a big, big knock on this Falcons defense. It's been playing all right. I mean, listen, they're not by any stretch of the imagination a defense that you fear, but they've been getting it done on the field. And so for me, if Desmond Trufant sits out, which I kind of feel like he will with a concussion, I think it'll probably take him a week to recover from that. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the hit. It was pretty brutal. Like it looked bad whenever he got hit. For me, I think this is a really good spot for these Falcons wide receivers who, listen, Case Keenum is just getting it done, right? I mean, he is hitting these guys every single time they're open. And I think they're going to be able to move the ball here. I think they'll be able to move the ball even on the ground a little bit against this Atlanta team. I don't really like betting against Atlanta at home in the Dome, but listen, getting it at 2.5 at 5 dimes, less than a field goal for me was just too good to pass up.
All right, moving on to San Francisco and Chicago. This one has a lower total significantly. Started at 39, went up a little bit to 40, 40.5 in most places. San Francisco on the road at Chicago, and Chicago is the ones that are favored. Started laying 4.5 points. Now it's at 3.5, 4 in some spots. Matt, anything we didn't know about this game outside of course, what's going on at quarterback in San Francisco?
I mean, that's the only reason that this game is even, we're going to spend 2 minutes talking about this game, is just because Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start for the 49ers. If it wasn't for that, we'd probably just move right on past this game. But yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start week 13 for the 49ers here, but he is going to be down a weapon. Marquise Goodwin looks like he's going to be out with a foot injury, so they'll have to, a receiving core that's already beat up is going to be even more beat up for Jimmy Garoppolo here, and an offensive line that got C.J. Beathard basically killed last week. On the Bears side, 140 total yards is what this offense put up in a 31-3 loss to the Eagles. It was embarrassing. It was hard to watch. This Bears team is just absolutely putrid. And if it wasn't for the fact that I have no idea who Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be throwing to, maybe Joe has an idea of who he can possibly get the ball to in this game, I would say that this San Francisco bet would be one of the best ones of the week, but I don't know who Jimmy Garoppolo with this offensive line and fifth string wide receivers. How's he going to get this done, Joe?
Trent Brown, the right tackle who missed this last game against the who the heck did San Francisco just play? Why am I blanking on that?
Seattle.
Oh, Seattle. That's right. Trent Brown was ruled out for that game. Game time decision. He should be good to go this week against Chicago. So you've got your right tackle back. Joe Staley should be good to go as well. He came back into the game against Seattle despite the injury he suffered in the second half. So you have both your bookend tackles. That's big. Marquise Goodwin, we're not sure where he's at right now. You will have Trent Taylor. It's going to be a bit of a stretch that this team will have any weapons. But here's the only two things you need to worry about. Big upgrade at quarterback for the 49ers, number one. And number two, do you know how many times John Fox has covered a point spread as a favorite since he took over in Chicago? 0. 0-6. 6 times he's been a favorite. He's never covered the spread. The city is mutinying. It's a mutiny against Fox. Trubisky has the 5th worst quarterback rating in NFL history through the first 7 starts of his career. It's going to take time. They're a mess. Give me the Niners. There's a reason it opened plus 5.5 and got bet to 3.5. I'll still take the Niners in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, look, you look at the Chicago team and this past week. I mean, look, we talked about this Eagles run defense is good. It was going to force them to go through the air. I mean, look at Jordan Howard. He had 6 yards rushing in this game, guys. I mean, like they were just unable to get anything going whatsoever. I think it's probably going to be the case again this week. Listen, I don't love the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be making his first start on the road with, like I said, 3rd, 4th, 5th string wide receivers here. That being said, he still has, whenever I go player for player here, does he have the better, does San Francisco have the better quarterback? Yes. Do they have a better running back? I mean, overall in Carlos Hyde, I would say yes there as well. On the defensive side of the ball, it's kind of a push, I think, in my opinion. I'm going to take San Francisco in this one. What it comes down to is what this number ends up closing at. I'm not going to bet it today. I'm going to see where it ends up, Joe. Hopefully, if we can get this thing back down below 3. I mean, it's jumping all over the place. 4.5. I mean, there's 4.5s, 4s, there's 3s out there. There's all kinds of, no one's decided how they want to go about this game right now. So for me,
let's predict the line. What would happen between now and kickoff that would get the line to move toward the Bears? I think the hype surrounding Garoppolo is going to be enough.
Probably move it the other way.
Exactly. I think buying it on the right side of 3, 3.5 or greater at the moment is the best way to play the Niners. I don't think you're going to get any better by kickoff. Yeah, just a guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you can find 3s, 3.5s, that's probably the way to go. It already at 4 for me might be a little bit too much. Again, I just don't know how San Francisco scores here. This game, if anything, maybe under 40.5, Joe.
That's definitely a way to look at it. I mean, without question.
Yeah, here's the thing is that I'm a confidence bettor. I like to know who I'm betting on, and I don't know who either of these teams are 13 weeks into the season. I don't know what to expect from either one of these squads. This is a stay away game for me. Next up, Detroit on the road at Baltimore.
Better. I like that. Confidence better.
I have to at least have some sort of confidence that someone's going to perform in a certain way, and I have no idea what either of these teams are going to do on any given week. So I'm out on that one.
If there's any prop bets for how many punts are going to happen, take the over. Yeah, I would do that.
I'm good with that.
And Mitch Trubisky less than 50 yards. I'd take that one too. So Detroit is on the road at Baltimore. And how about this? Baltimore favored by 3, 2.5 in some places at home, with Detroit coming to town. 40, 41, 40.5 is the total here. Matt, what do we need to know about this game?
Yeah, this line is opened is they are assuming that Matthew Stafford's not going to play in this game. If you watch, he got his ankle banged up. And listen, as of today, he says feeling better, but definitely didn't say that he was going to play or that he was going to definitely give it a go or anything like that. All he said was that he was feeling better. I think this line reflects that they feel like he's not going to play in this game. On the Ravens side of the ball, they've won 3 of 4 very unimpressively, but they have won 3 of 4. Now they find themselves at 6-5 in a wild card race here, actually. As horrible as this Ravens team is to watch. I mean, maybe one of the worst, maybe one of the most unwatchable teams in all of the NFL. I got to admit here, guys, Joe, you can tell me how you feel about this, but without Matthew Stafford here for Detroit, Matthew Stafford has carried this Lions team this year. And as bad as Baltimore has been, if Matthew Stafford's not under center, I really have no confidence in this Lions team whatsoever.
I don't know if you guys know this about me, but recently I became a confidence bettor, and I don't have a whole lot of confidence in Joe Flacco and the Baltimore Ravens. Dave, I got to be honest. I mean, we watched him on Monday night. How often do the Ravens start with the ball and you say to yourself, Flacco's going to take this team down the field?
They got this. Yeah, no problem.
Like, very rarely do you feel confident that Flacco's going to lead them down the field. So with the quarterback situation in Detroit up in the air, there are too many variables at play. If Stafford plays, I kind of like the over on 40 points because the over's been cashing in a lot of Detroit games. Defensively, they just can't get the stops. If you look at Detroit's defense without Haloti Ngata versus how they played with him, it is a major difference in the running game. And if Baltimore can get the running game going, that's going to set up the play action game. That's going to set up a few Joe Flacco deep shots where at least one will connect. I might lean to the Ravens in that spot, but this game, ugly all the way around.
Yeah, kind of a pass for me right now until I know what's going to be going on. I think we'll probably be going all the way up until game time with this one. With those ankle injuries with the quarterback, he's going to have to get out there and throw on the field and make sure that he feels confident with what's going on. So I think we'll just need to monitor this up to Sunday. The one thing I don't like about Baltimore, Joe, is just this offense has no identity whatsoever, right? Like, you've got a banger at running back in Alex Collins, and now they're trying to work back in Danny Woodhead, who's this completely other different type of guy, but they're not using him exclusively in a pass catching role. They are trying to give him carries as well. And then you've got Wallace and Macklin, who are basically both the exact same receiver, and they can't get anything going there. I hate this Baltimore team. I would love if Matthew Stafford was able to go, and I was able to bet the Lions with confidence, I might add. But yeah, I mean, I think this is probably something we're going to have to look at Sunday morning.
All right, so here's a stinker for you. Denver on the road at Miami. 37.5 is the total in this one, crept up to 38.5 in some places. Miami favored by 1 at open. Now Denver's favored by 1 in a couple of places. Pick them in others. This game just stinks to high heaven. And Matt, when it comes to the quarterback position, you talk about a carousel. Now Denver has managed to complete the circle, and they're back to Trevor Siemian.
Yeah, full circle. Paxton Lynch left the game with an ankle injury, and they've already named Trevor Siemian the starter for this week. So Trevor Siemian will be back under center for Denver. Holy mackerel, what an unbelievable this team falling apart. Corner Aqib Talib suspended for his little altercation with Michael Crabtree. Both of those guys decided that it was more important to settle a score than it was to actually compete in a game where it's now this division is wide open again, because the Chiefs have been crumbling, and they decided for their little fight was more important than actually being able to be on the field and help their teams out.
Things are bad when Marshawn Lynch runs in and is the voice of reason to calm things down. You have screwed up bad.
Yeah, way to go. Jay Cutler did miss that game with a concussion. So, I mean, again, it doesn't really matter who's under center for them. Right. It's the same look at this. Damian Williams, who has been kind of their number one back there by default, actually dislocated his shoulder. So it's going to be Kenyon Drake going for this Miami team. If that makes any difference to you guys one way or another, you can skip me on this one because I would not touch this game with a 10-foot pole. I hate this game.
I'm staying away as well. Anything for you, Joe? Over, under, or side on this one?
Not much confidence here, Dave.
Nope, not much at all.
Remember when Denver Miami meant Elway Marino? Like, there was a time where this actually was a great quarterback rivalry. That was multiple decades ago, believe it or not. I would make a small wager on Miami based on one thing and one thing only. Denver has quit. So many teams want to give you that speech, and you see it with the Niners a bit, that these guys play to win. They have too much pride. They want to put good tape out there. The Niners are feisty. They put up a fight every week. The Giants last week against Kansas City, and I'm talking 2 weekends ago, they put up a little bit of a fight too there, although they're going to be a mess this week, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Miami, while dreadful, they haven't necessarily quit. Denver has packed it in on the season. Denver has absolutely given up. They fired an offensive coordinator. They're not interested in what Vance Joseph has to say. There's a lot of dysfunction in Denver right now. Small wager on Miami.
I mean, if this got to a 1.5, I guess maybe I could tease Denver up through a touchdown and I would feel okay with that. I don't think Denver gets trucked. I don't think Miami has the firepower for Denver to get beaten by more than a touchdown in this game. So maybe if this got up to a 1.5, I would 6-point this up through a touchdown, but that would be about the only play I would look at.
I just expect both these teams to just quit at halftime and just say, let's just hit the showers. I'm just over it. AFC South, Indianapolis and Jacksonville. This one, I like a side on this one, even though Chuck Pagano is mumbling about Groundhog Day at press conferences. Jacksonville getting 10.5 points, laying 10.5 points at home. Feels like way too many for me based on how we've seen Jacksonville be on this roller coaster. Now, Indianapolis has its problems, Matt, but what do we need to know about this game before we start to break it down?
Yeah, I mean, the Colts lost another defensive back in Rashaan Melvin. I mean, it's just been, and Rashaan Melvin, it's been horrible for this team with injuries this year. This poor Colts team just can't seem to stay healthy. Jaguars, on the other hand, lost to the Cardinals, and in the process lost the linebacker Tevin Smith to a concussion in that game. And what we are seeing playing out right here is what we feared was going to happen before the season started. Teams, for whatever reason, it took them this long to figure out that Blake Bortles cannot complete a forward pass. And they were allowing Leonard Fournette to run against normal boxes there for the first few weeks of the season. He was getting 100-yard games left and right. What happens now? He's facing like 15-man boxes every single time because teams are daring Blake Bortles to throw the ball on them. And what do you know? He can't complete a forward pass to anybody. And so this Jacksonville team is going to be facing some very, very, very stiff fronts. I mean, it's not, I can't say even front seven. It's going to be 9 people in the box every single time, daring Blake Bortles to be able to beat them on the outside. 9.5, 10.5 at home for Jacksonville against anybody just seems crazy to me.
It's way too many points, Joe.
Not a lot of sex appeal here either. I would say this. A couple 41s out there for a total, 41 at Bovada, 41 at Bookmaker. If you sort through SBR odds, there's some opportunity. I'd look to the under here. I don't think Jacksonville is going to blow the doors off anybody offensively this week. They're 3-7 against the number in their last 10 home games. So I don't see them putting up 25, 30, 40 points in this one. And Indy's going to struggle to move up and down the field. Frank Gore is only a handful of yards away from passing 2 more running backs on the all-time list. He's going to get past LaDainian Tomlinson this season and into the top 5. If there's anything for the Colts this year, maybe lean on that because you can have a little bit of a tribute to one of the game's more underappreciated running backs. Outside of that, I really don't see a whole lot of big plays. With the over, however, you're hoping that you don't have a bunch of screw-ups on offense that lead to big-time defensive TDs or short fields for the offense. So it is a risk, but a small play to the under at 41 points.
Houston and Tennessee in the AFC South. And this one, 42.5 is the where it opened. Now it's at 43 in most places. Tennessee, of course, is favored in this one by a touchdown, 7.5 in one spot over at 5 dimes, 6.5 in other places. Look, I mean, Tennessee is one of these teams, Matt, where you look at this squad and you go, look, offensively, they have all these pieces, but week after week, they just can't really seem to get it going. They almost lose to the Browns. And it seems disappointing. Meanwhile, Houston is just a total wreck with Tom Savage under center.
Yeah, Bill O'Brien came out and said he'll actually bench Tom Savage if he continues turning the ball over, but then that would mean they would have to go to TJ Yates. So what are you really getting in that? Yeah, what is that really? What are you doing there? Brian Cushing actually has now served his 10-game suspension, so he is able to return if they want to put him out there. They said they will evaluate where he is at physically. So he might be out of shape.
When he's not on the performance-enhancing drugs, how is he going to do? Sure.
So we will see.
That
and we'll
dude
go there.
loves steroids, man. That guy loves steroids.
Apparently, steroids are a real hoot, and Brian Cushing all about it.
Yeah, absolutely loves them. On the Titan side of the ball, Rashard Matthews actually sat out this past week with a hamstring injury. He's listed as day-to-day, so maybe they'll be without Rashard Matthews, who has actually been Marcus Mariota's number 1 target there in Tennessee.
I'll take the points with Houston here. Savage has been sloppy with the ball, but he's taking more shots down the field. He's getting DeAndre Hopkins involved. 2 weeks in a row, he's looked, dare I say, somewhat serviceable. Still making big mistakes, but he doesn't look completely inept as a guy who can't lead the team up and down the field. I mean, Monday night against the Raven defense in Baltimore, they were in that game late. Granted, it was mostly the defense and a lack of offensive explosion from Baltimore's side, but they were still in it. Savage had the ball in his hands with a chance to win. Granted, he fumbled, but this is a lot of points to cover for a Tennessee team that has covered the spread 9 times over their last 35 home games. So you're going to give me more than a touchdown here? I'll side with Houston.
Yeah, Matt, you actually said it well last week. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins he's a superstar, right? And Savage just throws it to him every single time. Well, he had over 100 receiving yards last week because Baltimore's defense couldn't stop him. Well, do we think that Tennessee's defense is going to do a better job at shutting down D-Hop? I don't think so. So, right. I mean, sure, yeah, they may make a decent amount of mistakes along the way, but you get that ball near D-Hop, and at least he has a chance to make a play.
Well, at least the Ravens have Jimmy Smith in the secondary. Tennessee has absolutely nobody. And here's the problem with Tennessee. And this is basically the reason why I'm not a talent evaluator. And even the people who get paid millions of dollars to be talent evaluators get things wrong. It seems like at least, 30, 40% of the time. I don't think Marcus Mariota is very good, to be perfectly honest with you. He's not running the ball like he did in college. He's thrown more interceptions than he's thrown touchdowns this year. He misses wide open receivers on the regular and doesn't know when to make his reads. Like, you can just see this guy is like kind of confused. It's not coming to him as quickly as it should. You can find 7.5s right now. So over a touchdown in this game. And listen, the one thing that Houston can still do is they can still pass the ball. And you got a couple of guys out there. I mean, look, Bruce Ellington has stepped up and actually done fairly well for this team, filling in for Will Fuller here. I think Houston's going to be able to move the ball. I think they're going to be able to score. Look, Tennessee wasn't able to put away the Colts this past week, who basically the Colts were trying to just hand them a giant win in that game, and they just could not take it. They would not seize the moment. I can't see any way that they go and decide to truck Houston out of nowhere here. I think Houston's going to be able to move the ball. I got to be honest with you, I kind of like the over of 43 here as well. I certainly like plus 7.5 on the Houston side, but I might look at the over as well in this thing, because I got to be honest, I think both these teams are going to be able to move the ball.
Again, SBRodds.com if you want to see all these lines that they change in real time to make all of your plays. How about this one? If you would have told me in week number 4 that Kansas City would be on the road playing the Jets in New Jersey and they would only be 3-point favorites, I would have told you that you were crazy. That's the reality that we live in now. The Jets are home dogs in this one, but not by a lot. So again, Kansas City favored by only 3.5 in a couple of places. Total here is 43.5. Matt, are we going to see the same scrappy Jets team that we have seen these past few weeks now, several weeks now? And are we going to see this offense from Kansas City once again that just can't figure it out all of a sudden?
Totally confused, totally. They're trying all these gadget plays. Andy Reid is like, he's grasping at straws, and really, you don't really have to. I don't understand what's going on with the way they're trying to run this offense. You have a traditional running back that can run the ball. You have your burner wide receiver in Hill. You've got your big tight end that you can throw to over the middle. I don't know why they keep trying all these gadget plays. I don't know why they're dinking and dunking the ball down the field. Alex Smith averaged under 5 yards a pass this past, 5 yards an attempt this past week. Just absolutely gross. That being said, Andy Reid stepped up and said that he's our quarterback, so you don't have to worry about Mahomes coming into this game. On a kind of a transaction note here, Kansas City actually signed Darrelle Revis. So Darrelle Revis is probably going to play for the Chiefs this week in a revenge game, if you will, against the Jets, if you buy into any of those narratives.
Yeah, I'm sure he's ready to go.
Yeah, I'm sure he's fired up. All that time on the couch he spent this season, he is limber, set.
On the Jet side of the ball, Todd Bowles did step up, and he said that Josh McCown is our quarterback, despite the fact they are out of an all playoff race. They don't want to go to Bryce Petty or Christian Hackenberg, if that tells you what they think about those guys. They are going to continue to play Josh McCown, even though they're out of a playoff race, and have two young quarterbacks that they have no idea what they've got in these guys.
That Hackenberg pick looks terrible. That was a second rounder, and they can't even – when that dude, during training camp this year, he was airmailing passes in 7-on-7 that were hitting reporters on the sideline in the head. He did it more than once. I mean, that guy can't play. And
Joe,
I went to
we
Penn
call
State.
that the Brock Osweiler, okay? There's a name for it.
Yeah, Hackenberg actually got that thing started, but that's a great call. All right, so here's what we've got. Kansas City's lost 5 of 6. The biggest problem right now is the offensive line. Can't run block, can't protect. And if there's one thing we know about the National Football League, it's that bad offensive lines do not travel well. Bad offensive lines do not travel well in the National Football League. Kansas City's the Mets. The Jets have covered 6 of their last 7 at home. They did not cover this past weekend against Carolina, but they were right in the thick of that thing until a couple fluke plays late hurt them. Bad plays. Bad teams give up fluke plays. So we do have to take that into account. But the Jets +3 wouldn't shock me if the Jets won this game outright. I'll take the field goal with New York.
Go ahead, Matt.
I look at this game and I see a home dog against a team that is, on the ropes. You talk about a team that is reeling here. I'm wondering, Joe, where we think this line is going to end up. It looks like it opened in the 4 range, is already down to 3.5 at different places. Do you see this as a situation where later in the week, some of the sharp money comes in and starts bringing this number back? Aren't they going to look at this and say, look, at the end of the day, the Jets are a bad squad. Kansas City is playing bad. I don't know if Kansas City is a bad team. The Jets are a bad team. I'm wondering where this line is going to end up and if we could get it in a more favorable situation.
What's the public going to do? Do you think the public helps us out here? Because I don't think the public is going to be interested in the Jets at all. The question is whether or not anyone's going to want to dump money on Kansas City to give us the hook, because I don't see any 3.5s out there right now. There's one, actually. It's right over there at Intertops. So you can get a 3.5 right now at the moment. Maybe the public money comes back.
I'm seeing one at Bovada as well, if you're interested. So there's also one at Bovada. But those are the only two with 3 and a hook. Yep.
I think if you can get the hook, you're in a decent situation here. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot more.
So New England, sure, 17-point favorites. Why not? Yeah, covering easy, no problem. Well, this week, once again, at least over on 5 dimes, double-digit favorites again. They're traveling to Buffalo in this one. New England opens at 9. It's actually come down in a couple of places to 7.5. There's actually a pretty decent variance as far as the lines go if you go to SBROdds.com. 49 at open. Now it's down to 48.5. Matt, we know that Ty God Taylor is going to be starting for Buffalo once again. Does this team rally around him? And is there any chance that Buffalo actually has a decent performance against New England?
I mean, no Chris Hogan this past week, and what do the Patriots do? Just doesn't matter. Just go out there, roll, do what they got to do. Martellus Bennett's been placed on IR, so his season is done. Played all of like 12 plays for them, so good. Yeah, good for him.
I think there's something highly suspicious going on there. I think the league realized the Patriots had some tampering, and they kind of maybe gave them the heads up that if they shut him down, they wouldn't look into it further. Just a conspiracy theory, something to talk about later. But I think there's more to that story than meets the eye.
Stay woke, bro.
As you mentioned, Dave, as you mentioned, they did go back to Tyrod Taylor, and all they did was go in and beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead. So, you have that going on for them. Wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin actually tore his meniscus. They didn't reveal that. They were just saying that he tweaked his knee. It has come out now that he tore his meniscus. You can play through that, but it's just kind of playing through pain, right? So it depends on his pain threshold. So we don't know for sure he's going to be out, but a lot of guys will sit a couple of weeks and kind of let the inflammation go down a little bit, and then they'll get back in there. So I don't know if I would expect him this week here, but pretty interesting game to see this line move in the favor of the Bills. I gotta hope this thing keeps going down, because I'm going to unload on the Patriots. The Patriots are going to smash them, Joe. I don't care if it is in Buffalo. I don't care if it is at the Ralph.
I mean, look at what New England's defense has been doing. At the beginning of the season, they looked to be one of the worst of all time. And then over the last, 6-7 weeks, they've just firmly shut down the opposition. New England is now 12-2 against the number over their last 14 road games. And they're 11-2 against the number in their last 13 trips to Buffalo. Like there's very little that's going to entice me to play the Bills here. What I might consider is under 48.5. Buffalo's offense, some problems, some injuries, as Matt detailed. Here comes this New England defense that's been playing very well. I don't think you're going to get 20 points out of the Bills this week. So that means, are the Patriots going to go on the road and hang 28-31, maybe 35 points in this game to make up the difference? They could. But again, it's a divisional road game, and you want to think long-term here. Get in, get your win, get out. Maybe under 48.5 is the way to go, but you can probably wait till Sunday because it's a Patriot game. You'll probably see the price go up, and maybe we get some wind at Ralph Wilson Stadium.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. If you want to play the under in this one, I would certainly wait, because I can't imagine this thing going down from where it's at right now at 48.
I am seeing a 49 over on Heritage currently as we record this. UWager also has a 49, so I think you're right, Matt.
Yeah, I think it's going to creep up, if anything. Patriots, look, a very, very public team, a team that people love to bet on, and nobody likes to, the public hates betting unders because you want to root for touchdowns. And so I think it's very easy. I think it's very within the realm here of this game getting up to 50.5 if you want to bet the under in this one. So I would hold off on that. Listen, like I said, I'm not betting against this Patriots team anymore, especially if you're going to give me a 7.5 at Pinnacle right now. All day long, my friend. This team can score at will. It doesn't matter. They just pick what week they want it to be. This past week, it was Gronk week. They decided to give Gronk 2 touchdowns. And the week before, it was Brandon Cooks week. If Hogan comes back this week, they might make it Hogan week. It doesn't matter. However, whatever they want to do, they're doing it right now. And I'm not saying this Buffalo. I'm not going to sit here and try to use recency bias and say that this Buffalo defense finally figured it out. I think it's more of the Kansas City Chiefs just have no idea what they're doing. What they're doing on offense. This Buffalo team was getting gouged, was just getting absolutely murdered up until that game last week. I think that's the defense more than what we saw this past week. I think New England does whatever they want to here.
So we've come to terms with the fact that Cleveland's not ever going to win a game for the rest of our existence on this planet, right? But can they ever cover a spread? The answer there is also no. How about this one? They're traveling to Los Angeles this week. 13.5 at open, and it's gone up 14, 15 is what the Chargers are now favored by. Total in this one has come down just a touch, so opens at 43. Now it's down to 41.5, 42. Look, Matt, the Chargers started the season 0-4. They look like they're going to be a complete mess. Now they're surging. It's very possible they're going to win the AFC West.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Browns team, like you mentioned, fell to 0-11 for the second straight year. So there you go. Good job, fellas.
Good job, guys.
0-11 for the second straight year.
They're consistent, if nothing else.
You know, we know what to expect from them.
If nothing else. If you are a Browns fan and you want to look on the bright side of things,
there is one.
You do get back Josh Gordon this week. So
hey, there's that. So that guy that's been smoking weed and eating Molly with Johnny Manziel for 4 years. Let's see what he's still got.
According to reports, was making $10,000 a month selling weed while at Baylor. So a bit of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Hey, look, he has not played a regular season game since 2014. So there is that.
Good.
However, he is only 26 years old. So, I mean, we know receivers usually don't fall off until they're 30. So maybe he's got 3 years left in him. Who knows? We'll see. On the Charger side of the ball, their rookie, Mike Williams, knee injury could keep him out a couple of weeks. He wasn't really factoring into that offense much anyway.
Okay, so here's a question for you. How often do you enter week 13 where a team with a 5-6 record is laying 14 points in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean,
it's
so ridiculous, right? That's just how bad Cleveland is.
This is insane. But Cleveland, they've covered only 16 of their last 52 point spreads. They have covered 5 of their last 21 games on the road. I don't want to lay 14 with the Chargers or 13.5 because that's available, but I'm not taking Cleveland. I do think there might be something to the Josh Gordon angle in that long-term, Hugh Jackson and the Browns aren't going to want this guy on the roster. They're going to want to move him, however, in the offseason. And I think if you force feed him the rock between now and the end of the year, and he puts up some decent numbers, and he looks like he's rehabilitated himself, you might be able to trade him for some more assets in the offseason. So maybe there's something to that from a prop perspective, but I find this game to be unbettable. There was an interesting line move that was taking place while we were on the air here. The entire board lit up at the same time with money coming in on the under. Maybe that's something to look at.
Yeah, I mean, you look right here, and this would be the only way that I would bet this game, and maybe I make this part of a teaser or something like that, depending on where the number gets, and tease it
even
up
if
to
you
like
tease
49.
it down, though. I mean, so even at 13.5, if you tease it down 6 points, you're still at 7.5.
The total. I'm thinking maybe,
the total. Okay.
Maybe you get this up to like 49 and then you play the under here. Here's the thing. The Chargers have a very, very good pass rush. They are going to get to Kaiser and they are going to, that's the only problem, I guess, with playing the under here is Chargers might have short field all day long. I mean, they literally might have short fields all day long. They got Hayward in the secondary who's going to be able to make some plays there as well. They're going to have 3 turnovers in this game. The Chargers are. If they score points off of those, and then the regular points are going to score here. You know what, Joe? You said it right. This game's unbettable. This game is.
How confident would you be? Let me ask you this. There's a 14. If you could tease it up to 20, are you confident Cleveland can keep it within 20?
No. No. Dude, Phillip Rivers threw for 450 yards last week. And look, trust me, the way you beat this Cleveland team is to throw it, and they are going to throw it every freaking down. Like, they're going to throw it every single time. Phillip Rivers might have back-to-back 400-yard games because this is how this is going to go right here. Look, the Chargers, Dave, you are not kidding. The Chargers are in a situation where this division is wide open. They could easily take this division. If you think they are going to take it easy whatsoever in this game, they need to figure it all out still. It wouldn't surprise me if they go out there and cover the number on their own. I mean, like, if they put up 42 points, it certainly wouldn't shock me.
All right, next up, this is actually a really fun game. Carolina is in the Superdome in New Orleans taking on the Saints, and the Saints were down their starting corners. That was a big problem for them last week against the Rams. But the NFC South all of a sudden is a really interesting division with Carolina, New Orleans, and Atlanta. Tampa Bay stinks, we know that. But, Matt, what do we need to know about the health of New Orleans right now? And then over on the Carolina side of the ball as well, Greg Olsen was back for like 4 minutes, and then he's out again. What's going on?
Yeah, so he did come back. He hurt that same foot that he was out with, but the x-rays came back negative, all the things like that. He actually said that he's, quote, okay. So it leads to signs that he's at least going to try to give it a go. He was on a limited snap count anyway in that game. And so I would imagine if he does give it a go this week, he's probably going to be one of those guys that's just like a red zone guy. I would imagine he comes in once they get to about the 20-yard line because he is so good in the red zone. I can't imagine him playing between the 20s and risking injuring that foot again. On the other, however, though, their starting wide receiver, Devin Funchess, jammed his toe. And it sounds funny when you say, like, oh, you jammed your toe, but like these wide receivers, when they have foot injuries and things, it's bad. Like it is bad for receivers to have any sort of foot injury. So something for us to monitor as well to see how he functions on that. Like you mentioned, on the Saints side of the ball, they were without both starting corners, and it was very evident against that Rams team. I mean, they went to the air early and often. Jared Goff went for over 350 yards in that game. The Saints, Kobe Fleener, their tight end, got concussed in that game. That's his 5th of his career. So probably going to be sitting out this game, I would imagine, after you've had your 5th concussion of your career. So Kobe Fleener likely going to be out. As far as Lattimore and Crawley, it looks like Lattimore probably is going to miss one more week. Crawley has the better chance to suit up this week for the Saints. But again, if either one of these guys is out, it leaves a big time vulnerability.
I'm going to make this one relatively quick. Great game to watch. Not a great game to bet, in my opinion. The Carolina Panthers have done a nice job covering on the road. The Saints do a nice job covering at home. I don't really trust Cam Newton because even in wins, he can look bad. And then in losses, he can look great. It's really tough for me to try to figure him out. He was terrible against the Jets last week, throwing off his back foot, not willing to go over the middle. But that defense is playing outstanding. And Drew Brees looked very old in that game against the Rams. Wade Phillips had him dialed up to where he was underthrowing passes. His timing was off. It's very rare you see that from Brees. So the one thing I would consider here, you've got 4s and 4.5s, 4.5s across the board. I might tease it up and take 10.5 with the Panthers in that defense on the road in New Orleans, knowing that this isn't necessarily a pass-first Saints offense like we know and love. They like to establish the running game. If I can get 10.5 with Carolina, I might look to that.
Joe, yeah. I'm with you. I don't trust Cam Newton at all. And one thing that's interesting, I mean, he seems like too emotional, right? Like he swings wildly one game to the other. You know, sometimes he'll go out there and look great, like the old Cam Newton that we were used to. Other times, you know, he's falling over like in that Bears game. And it is interesting to me that when he's celebrating, doing the little Superman thing in the end zone after a score, a lot of times he's celebrating by himself. That tells me something about how his teammates feel about him. It's just an observation. I don't know if it really means anything, but just keep an eye on the camaraderie of that team, because New Orleans, I think, is really going to try to put it on him here and make a big statement after that loss last week to the Rams. Matt, you follow New Orleans closer than almost anyone. What do you say about this game?
I think this is an under all day long. Listen, it is the second game. It is the second game in a divisional rivalry. And if you look over the years, these games are ugly a lot of the time. Once these teams have already seen each other play one time and they get them for the second time, these games tend to be kind of ugly. And listen, I think the Carolina defense is for real, and the Saints defense, let's just assume they get at least one of the corners back here. I think that's a real big uptick for this defense. And listen, while they gave up a lot of yards to the Rams, it wasn't like the Rams were just putting up points left and right in that game. It wasn't like they were just scoring at will. At 48 right now in a game that's likely to creep up because it's the Saints and the Panthers, you're probably going to see 49s by the time this goes off. I think you look to the under here. I think a pretty ugly game, to be perfectly honest. I don't like what I see in Cam Newton. He's very inaccurate here lately. And frankly, on the New Orleans side of the ball here, this Carolina defense, they're for real. I don't think that they're just going to be able to go out there and truck. So for me, under. And I'm going to wait till that gets to 49, but I'm going to take the under in this one.
All right, so the Rams are on the road this week in Arizona. 45 is the total in this one across the board. Opens up with the Rams laying 5.5. Now that's up to 7.5 over on 5 dimes. Matt, is there anything that we know as far as injuries go? And another question for you as a follow-up, is this a possible look-ahead game for the Rams? Is it possible that they overlook the Arizona Cardinals because they have so much hard competition coming their way in the next coming weeks, and Arizona has been a very suspect team this year?
Yeah, no, I mean, on the injury front, the Rams are pretty healthy. The Cardinals are actually pretty healthy here. I mean, obviously the Rams coming off that huge win over the Saints, and if you want to look at any news coming out of the Cardinals, Bruce Arians did give Blaine Gabbert basically like the seal of approval. They asked him, what if, Carson Palmer retires and doesn't come back? And Bruce Arians basically jumped up and said that Blaine Gabbert would be his quarterback next year. I mean, that's not going to be his decision most likely anyway, but just let you kind of see where he thinks about Blaine Gabbert here. For me,
if that's his statement, they're not going to let that be his decision. Let's just put it like that. Oh yeah, Gabbert's my guy. Anyone above him's like, no, you're clearly a crazy old man.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry to interrupt.
But it is Blaine Gabbert who's been on like 9 different teams and everything like that. Never had any success anywhere. Although I got to be honest, he didn't look that bad in the game this past week.
It's all right.
Yeah, you look at this game, and I don't necessarily think it's a look ahead game, Dave, because whenever you look at this Rams team, they've had other opportunities this year to look ahead, and they've had other opportunities to let down. And they really haven't had a huge letdown spot so far this year. I mean, you look at that Vikings game, that wasn't a letdown spot. That's just the Vikings are a really good team. If the Vikings went and lost to the Rams at the Rams place like that, we would just say, okay, well, the Rams are a good team. I don't think we really read anything into that game whatsoever. I guess the early line movement here is the thing that kind of throws me off. I mean, 2 whole points in the Rams' direction here in a game where I guess there is some sort of question, like you're saying, Dave. I mean, you wouldn't bring that up if you hadn't heard that. Are there people out there that think that this is one of those situations where the Rams could let this get away from them?
Well, I mean, it's the Eagles and the Seahawks that are the next 2 coming weeks for the Rams, right? And so, I mean, you think about games that you really have to prepare for, and I don't think that they're just going to overlook the Cardinals. But who do you really have in the back of your mind? It's probably arguably the best team in the NFL and certainly the best team in the NFC and the Eagles next week who are going to be coming to town. It just seems like maybe if you're going to be preparing and focusing all of your mental energy on a game every single given week, this one has the chance to just slightly get away from you.
Rams have been great. They've covered 5 of 6, and they've been a fun watch this season. But if you watch the game against the Saints, I think there's a lot to what you're saying, Dave. Late in that game, the way they were enjoying themselves on the sideline, and there's nothing wrong with this. That's a huge win over New Orleans. But the way they were enjoying that win, to me, it looked like a team that realized we do belong. We tried to make the statement in Minnesota. It didn't work out. Vikings are a great team. We made the statement here against the Saints. We are capable of winning this thing in the NFC. Now, with Philadelphia on deck, which is the ultimate barometer in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles, who have been trucking everybody all season long, you're telling me you're going to go to divisional rival Arizona, you're going to put all your effort and focus into that game, and you're going to cover 7.5. I could see this game being messy. The clock in the NFL moves a lot faster than college. Somehow, some way late, the Rams figure it out and get it done. But I don't know if it's going to be by a touchdown. And it wouldn't surprise me if they fell flat in this game because it's a divisional opponent and it's a look-ahead spot. So dangerous for me to lay the Rams. Dangerous.
Do we do what we did last week with this Ravens team where we were confident they were going to win, but we didn't think they were going to win by a touchdown? I mean, like, do we just tease this down to a point?
Tease it down to a point, 1.5 even over on 5.
The Ravens were at home, though. The Ravens were at home in prime time. This is a road divisional game. There's a different element that needs to be accounted for there. It's a fair point, but you got to take that into account. I mean, I would have done the same thing with Jacksonville last week. Oh yeah, am I confident the Jags go in and beat Arizona? Oh, I can tease it down and get a point or something, and look what happens. I mean, the Jags couldn't even handle it. Granted, quarterback situation, but the road teaser it's the whole thing about this game just stinks for me.
Yeah, we're going to tease this one down, and then the Rams are going to win by 30. All right, so next up we got the Giants. They're on the road at Oakland, and shocking news that Eli Manning, after 210 consecutive games under center, is finding the bench, and Geno Smith is the answer. I mean, could this team be more of a disaster? 40.5 is the total at open, and now it's up to 42.5, even 43 in a couple of places. Oakland favored by 8, 7.5, 8. The news of Eli Manning being benched doesn't really change that much. Matt, obviously the receiver position for Oakland is something of huge concern, because what else does Oakland have? Yeah. But what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, look, this Eli Manning thing, it's not so much Geno Smith. This is just a stopgap to put Davis Webb in there, and they want to see what they've got in this kid. They just didn't want to go straight from Eli to Webb, and that's why they're going to give Geno Smith a half or something like that, and they're going to go to Davis Webb because they already know what they've got in Geno Smith. He's not the future for that team. On the Raiders side of the ball, Crabtree's going to be out this week for suspension. Amari Cooper got a concussion as well as a sprained ankle, so he's going to be out this week most likely. That leaves your wide receiver core of Seth Roberts, Cordero Patterson, and Johnny Holton is who we're going to have there for the Oakland Raiders, and that's who Derek Carr average.
Look, Cordero Patterson is really fast. He just can't catch a football, and so
run a route.
Or run a route. That's really inconvenient too. So
yeah.
Here's what you do here. This is relatively simple. Look. Just you don't need to worry too much about this. The Eli Manning situation is an absolute mess. Take a look at the New York media. Take a look at what's happening. Every Giant player has come out and bashed this move. The Giants will quit in this game. They're not going to show up for this game at all. They have no business. They don't care. This is the organization mailing in it and disrespecting a two-time Super Bowl champion, face of the franchise type guy. Team's not going to show up here. But with all the problems in Oakland, laying 8's difficult. There's a 7 out there at bookmaker. Tease it down to 1. Take the Raiders. Move on.
Yeah, listen, here's the thing is it doesn't matter really that you don't have any wide receivers there for Oakland, because the fortunate thing is one of the Giants are one of the worst teams in the entire NFL against the tight end. And you do have Jared Cook there, despite him laying a complete dud last week for whatever reason that was. Even after both receivers are out, he still only has 1 catch in that game. Giants give up yardage in bunches to tight ends. And also, they're very easy to run against. I think that Oakland can basically just play keep away here. You'll get a turnover or two out of Geno Smith and Davis Webb. So, yeah, I mean, Oakland's the play here, and I like Joe's strategy.
All right, so the final one is Sunday Night Football before we go on to the Monday game, and then we'll circle back to Thursday. But this is a fun one. So we got the Philadelphia Eagles that are on the road. They're going to CenturyLink to take on Seattle. It's a primetime game. It's an island game. Opens at 5.5 in favor of Philadelphia on the road at CenturyLink. You can find it just 5 over on sports betting as well as Pinnacle. And the total in this one has come down a bit from 48.5 to 47. Matt, I was over at the South Point earlier today, and somebody walked up and actually made a $30,000 bet on Philadelphia. Look, if I had a stack of cash, I would probably do the same thing because Philadelphia has been crushing everyone. Are people still too in love with the idea of who Seattle is at home at CenturyLink when we've seen some regression, certainly on the defensive side of the ball there? And even I think the home field advantage has come down a bit.
I don't think that they're in love with it. I think that they're delusional that this team, that this defense or this team in general is this team that they thought it was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and even as much as last year. This is not. It's a shell of its former self. I mean, let's just be completely honest here. This defense is nothing compared to what they used to be. Russell Wilson runs for his life on every single play. This Philadelphia team is going to be in his face all day long. He is going to be running for his life all day long. I hope they continue to overvalue this Seattle team. I hope that they continue to think that this is going to be this giant home field advantage. Let me tell you something about Carson Wentz. This kid is ice water in his veins. Nothing bothers this kid. He is good every single time he steps on the field. Nothing has looked too big for him so far. No throw has looked too big for him so far. He's got weapons all over the field. If they need to run the ball, they got a couple running backs. If they need to pass the ball, they got wide receivers and a tight end to get it done. Joe, I don't know how you feel. I know you like these home situations and these primetime things. I think this Eagles team not only wins, I think they stomp the hell out of Seattle in this game.
All right, Seattle's covered 1 of their last 5 at home. You're exactly right. Home field at CenturyLink isn't what it used to be. Home field in primetime isn't what it used to be. Let's go back through and use some recent history. Last time they played at home, it was a primetime game. It was against Atlanta. Do we think Atlanta is better than Philadelphia? Because Atlanta had no problem putting up points against the Seattle squad. Let's go back to the game before that, the Washington Redskins. Do we think they're any better than Philadelphia? Because they went in there and eked one out at the end of the game. Even earlier in the season, a lousy San Francisco team went to CenturyLink and took that game down to the wire 12-9. San Francisco was actually in it in the third quarter against Seattle this past weekend, and they're a terrible team. And then you had Houston with Deshaun Watson up in Seattle in a big game earlier this year, Houston losing by 3. I don't know what would make me want to take the Seahawks in this spot. I would love to say home field's going to play a role, but you're down Cam Chancellor, who's the most valuable player on that defense. You're down Richard Sherman. I think you could close teases here, and I know it's not the ultimate tease moving through 2 key numbers, but then you're in a situation where you just need Philly to win, and I think Philly wins this game.
Listen, you look at this right here, and the Seahawks have no run game whatsoever. You can't run the ball in Philadelphia anyway, so if they try to run the ball, were they going to run it with Fat Eddie Lacy? He was the guy that got the majority of the touches this past week. They didn't even use McKissick.
Your featured back is Eddie Lacy. You don't have Cam Chancellor or Richard Sherman. What exactly is there to like about this Seattle team?
And you've got Russell Wilson, and again, he has dodged 1,000 bullets. Eventually,
Russell Wilson is awesome. He's an elite quarterback. He is absolutely carrying that team.
Outstanding.
They have very little else to be proud of at this point.
But what I'm saying is he's dodged about 1,000 bullets. There's only so many times he's going to be able to work this wizardry and be able to avoid getting seriously injured. I mean, He is running for his life on every single drop back. And let me tell you, Philadelphia is going to be all up in his grill. It is going to be a long day for Seattle. Like I said, I think Philadelphia stomps the hell out of them in this game.
All right, so moving on to Monday Night Football now. Pittsburgh is on the road in Cincinnati. Opening here at 6.5 favorites for the Steelers. Now it's down to 5.5, even 6 in a couple of places. Cincinnati, obviously is a team that's had a lot of problems throughout this season. They are at home in this game on a Monday night. 43 is the total. It's gone up to 43.5 in a couple of places. Matt, what do we need to know? Because one big note this past week is that Juju Smith-Schuster was out for that Pittsburgh offense, and that created not a problem for Antonio Brown because Antonio Brown is so incredible. However, he doesn't get the same sort of separation because they can just sort of dump everyone on AB. Is Juju going to be back this week? And what do you think as far as any other notes that are significant for this game?
I mean, he had 10 catches for 169 yards. So I think
that's what I mean. Like Antonio Brown is going to be okay, but having Juju back is only going to help.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be back, actually. I mean, he didn't practice at all last week with a hamstring injury, and with these wide receivers with these hamstring injuries, getting in no practice, didn't practice again on Monday. I think it's very questionable that he's going to play this week. Martavis Bryant stepped in, did fine. I mean, stepped in, caught a touchdown. They used Jesse James. I mean, look, Roethlisberger threw for over 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, the offense was not a problem. Le'Veon Bell went for 95 yards. I mean, that wasn't the issue. The issue for Pittsburgh was the defense that has been so good all year long was unable to stop Green Bay with Hundley at quarterback. And that's the big issue there for Pittsburgh. That being said, fortunately, you get to rebound against a team like Cincinnati with Andy Dalton. Listen, I understand people are going to spit out the QB ratings. And over the last 5 weeks, Andy Dalton's QB rating has been so great and all that. Yeah, it has. It's still Andy Dalton. And let's just be for real. This guy is not going to be able to get it done against this Pittsburgh team. That being said, I don't like this number here. I feel like that this number should be more in the 4 range. I don't really like it in the 6 range where it is right now. So, for me, Joe, I don't ever bet Cincinnati, so I wouldn't bet Cincinnati. But I think this number is a little bit too big for me to take Pittsburgh. So I think I'm going to take a pass on this one as much as I would love to take the Steelers.
2 reasons why we're going to play the Steelers in this game. Number 1, go through this entire season. Every time Pittsburgh has either lost or played below expectations, they've come back to smash the following week. In the opener at Cleveland, they win by 3. They come back the next week and crush Minnesota 26-9, right? Then they go to Chicago and they lose outright. They come back to smash Baltimore the following week. Then they lose at home to Jacksonville, huge upset. They rip off a 6-game winning streak after that, in which they go to Kansas City and win and cover. And then during the winning streak, they have a dicey game at Indianapolis. They come back the following week to smash Tennessee by 23 points. That was a dicey game against a bad Green Bay team without Aaron Rodgers. I think they come back huge this week based on what we've seen this season. That's number 1. Number 2, look at the history between these two teams. The last 29 times they've played each other, Pittsburgh has failed to cover 7 times. The last 21 times they've played in Cincinnati, Pittsburgh has missed 3 spreads. 3. I'll lay the points with the Steelers on Monday night.
Did you just call him Pittsburgh?
I did, and I was hoping no one caught it. I was hoping it wasn't that obvious. Apparently it was. Yeah. That's a good, but as a host, you have a keen ear, Dave.
Listen,
I'm sorry. I dropped the mic with that analysis. We don't need to really hear from you at this point.
One point to point out here as well. On the Cincinnati side, though, they have finally decided to feature Joe Mixon in this offense, and we saw what he could do this past week. I mean, basically Gio Bernard didn't even see the field against this Browns team that actually had been very stout against the run. And then you got Joe Mixon, went out there and just went absolutely ham, went crazy. Finally looked very confident with the ball, finally looked very confident running the ball. What we saw this past week against Pittsburgh, Jamal Williams for the Green Bay Packers went out there and had 135 total yards against this Pittsburgh team. So I would say that Joe Mixon is a far more talented back than Jamal Williams. So they better plug that up, Joe, if that's going to come to fruition. You're smashing here on the Steelers side of the ball.
All right, so here we go. SBRodds.com is where you need to go to see all these lines changing in real time. You can also see reviews of all of the different sports books where you can get the action. It's really a one-stop shop. SBRodds.com. Now, for those of you joining us early on, for the Thursday night game, Washington on the road at Dallas. Look, Dallas has had all sorts of problems. Being without Sean Lee on the defense has been a real issue. That's going to continue right this week, Matt. Tyron Smith is back, but of course Zeke is out. Darren McFadden is retiring. What else do we need to know about this game other than the fact that Dallas just looks depleted right now?
Yeah, I mean, on the Redskins side, I mean, it's will we, won't we get Jordan Reed? I mean, it's basically the question every single week. Will the guy play? Will he not play? You know, who
if he
has
does
any
play,
idea?
will he make it throughout the entire game or not? Like it's
no one has any idea. Yeah, on the Cowboys side of the ball, they recently released running back Darren McFadden, who decided to retire. So
just quit. Yeah, I'm done.
So he retired. Like you mentioned, Sean Lee still battling that hamstring injury, so we don't know where he's going to be. And then guard Zach Martin was actually concussed. We'll have to see if he's able to come back from that, as well as if they don't need more problems there for Dallas. I mean, whenever you look at this one top to bottom and this game in totality, I mean, it's just the Redskins are just a better team. I mean, like whenever you basically.
And Dallas is still favored right now. So they open as 1.5-point favorites at home. And, you know, obviously home field advantage has something to do with that. Over on Five Dimes is the only place right now currently where Washington is favored by a point. Total in this one is 44. Like you said, Matt, Washington is just the better team right now.
Yeah. I mean, at every phase and every facet, I mean, even at the running back position without Zeke, I mean, you're looking at Alfred Morris, who's just not able to get anything going there. And then you've got, Jason Witten at the tight end position, old man dad runner, the guy that can't run out of sight in 30 minutes. And then you got Vernon Davis on the other side, who's filling in for Jordan Reed. I mean, like basically at every level. You got Des Bryant hadn't had a 100-yard game all year, hadn't scored a touchdown in 7 weeks. I mean, they can't get the ball to him either. I hate everything that's going on with this Dallas team whatsoever. I just think overall Washington's a better team.
Evaluate Dallas for who they are, not who they were. And without Ezekiel Elliott, they are a team that has scored 7, 9, and 6. That's not the most alarming part. In those 3 games, they're averaging 235 total yards per game. That's not the most alarming part. In those 3 games, here's the most alarming part. They are -7 in turnover differential. That is atrocious for a 3-game stretch. This is a bad football team with a head coach who cannot make adjustments. He cannot coach his team to be better. He simply is a guy who, when everything is clicking for him and everyone's healthy on this Pro Bowl team, he can win. But Jason Garrett, when he needs to coach, has shown us he can't do it. He showed it in Atlanta and he showed it in the Charger game. Washington, they've covered 9 of their last 10 in Dallas. Give me the Redskins +1.
I was gonna say we're getting a point. I mean, like if anything, I feel like we should be laying here. I mean, I think Washington is just a superior team at all facets.
All right, so on to because it's championship week in college football. There's a whole bunch of fun games to talk about. We don't have time for all of it, but here we go. Let's talk about the SEC championship. Last time they played, Georgia favored by 2.5. Now the tables have turned. Georgia got fairly well stomped in that game, by the way, which took place in Auburn, and now it's the SEC championship game. Auburn is favored by 2.5. But Matt, interesting point, and you know about this better than almost anyone. Being at home is a huge advantage in college football and specifically in the SEC. The 2 biggest wins of Auburn's season at home have been against the Georgia Bulldogs and the Alabama Crimson Tide, which took place last week. Both games at home. This is a neutral site. It's going to be in Atlanta at the Superdome. How much is that going to have an effect? And do you like Auburn laying 2.5 points in this one?
Is that dome in Atlanta called the Superdome? Did they do that?
It's the Atlanta Superdome, the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, right?
Well, there's 2 Mercedes-Benz domes now, which I find interesting. Rivals, the Saints and the Falcons.
Yeah, I thought didn't they actually call it the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, or is it just the Mercedes-Benz Dome?
I think Atlanta is just the Mercedes-Benz Dome, and the Superdome is New Orleans. But that's all right. They're both Mercedes-Benz. Who's not going to get that mistaken? Why are you even talking about this?
Matt, can you just answer my damn question?
I was literally baffled that they would do that. That's why I was because I didn't know what it was called. So I was actually asking a genuine question right there, guys. I wasn't trying to be a dick. I was asking.
Sorry.
When you're always a dick, it's kind of hard to differentiate.
And by the way, thanks that neither one of you can answer the question because neither one of you have any idea what this thing is named.
It is the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Georgia Dome. So there you have it.
Okay.
Comma.
a technical team. That's a technical name for it. So
all right. Okay. Sports Authority Field at Mile High Stadium, like it used to be, or whatever. Yeah. Okay. I got you.
You're using up all your time here, buddy.
Yeah,
Who do you like?
Let's go.
Auburn is going to roll in this game. Georgia's not very good, and Georgia has a freshman quarterback that's going to let this game be way too big for him, just like he was in the game where I said that he was going to let the game be way too big for him. It's okay. He's a freshman. Like, he's got time to grow in to be able to win these type of big games. It's just not going to be this week. All day long, 2 points Auburn. Yeah, I don't think it's even close.
If I can get 3, I'll take Georgia. And if you offer 3 because you don't think it's any close, and I understand if you don't want to, but I'll make a dinner wager with you because there's 2 things here. Number 1, you got about 60% of the early tickets on Auburn and the line's moving to Georgia. That tells us where the money's going, and that is on Georgia. Number 2, and more importantly, after what happened in the Iron Bowl, every asshole in Las Vegas who's on vacation this weekend is going to bet Auburn in this game. I'll take Georgia.
I'll tell you,
there's one place right now where we can get 3 on Auburn, and that's Bovada currently as we record.
Give it to me. I'll take the 3 with Georgia.
There is one thing about this Auburn team that is a little bit concerning, and that is just like, that was a very rough physical game against Alabama. Like, this team is going to be a little bit beat up, a little bit worn out heading into this game. That being said, again, I don't like freshman quarterbacks. I don't like freshman quarterbacks in big games, and I certainly don't like them in games right here against a team that's already gotten in his head. Like, for me, I think this is a clear Auburn play, and Joe, we will have a nice little dinner bet on this game.
All right.
Yeah, because I told you we would, not because you told me we would. All right, plays of the week.
Plays of the week. This is what it comes down to. Look, let's not kid ourselves. The favorites have been crushing these past couple of weeks. Question is, does it continue this week? I've got 2 plays for you that are my favorites. Minnesota as underdog. So you're getting 3 points in most places on Minnesota. Yes, or in Atlanta. But this isn't going to be another big eruption spot for Julio Jones when he put Xavier Rhodes in his face. I like Minnesota getting 3 points. And also, we talked about it earlier, Philadelphia rolling into Seattle. This isn't the same Seattle team. The defense has been decimated. Philadelphia has been crushing everyone. It's as chalky as you can get, but guess what? Chalk up another win this week. I'll take Philadelphia. Love them there as well. Joe?
2 games as well. And you're right, favorites have been covering, so I might as well come out with 2 dogs. Agree with you on Minnesota. I'll also take the Niners +4 with Jimmy Garoppolo in Chicago. Garoppolo's from Chicago. It's a little bit of a homecoming for him. And not only that, the Bears have never covered as favorites under John Fox. That team, that city, they're ready to rally against and run Fox out of town. The Niners, they're still playing hard. I'll take the points with Garoppolo.
Give me listen, we're going to have to wait till Sunday morning. If Matt Stafford doesn't play, which I don't think that he will, I'm going to take Baltimore in that game. If Matt Stafford does end up playing, I will take the points with the Lions there. So basically, this is a bet that's that is based strictly on whether or not Matthew Stafford plays. But I think that's how much he means to this team. I mean, if you look, very underrated is how well he's played this year. I mean, the guy has really carried this team on his back. And so I think he's that important to that Lions team. And on the second note, I'll go against Dave here. I think Atlanta wins at home. I don't think that's I don't think that's a knock on Minnesota. I don't think that is a testament to the Falcons being that much better than the Vikings here. I think it's just Minnesota happens to be unfortunately getting Atlanta at home when Atlanta started to kind of figure things out here. You talk about Xavier Rhodes on Julio Jones. That's perfectly fine because you've got Mohamed Sanu, you've got Taylor Gabriel there, you've got Austin Hooper at tight end. There's a lot of weapons there for Matt Ryan, not to mention Tevin Coleman as well. I like Atlanta in that game.
All right, so that's going to do it for us. SBRodds.com. It's very simple. You go over there, you can see all of the lines changing in real time. You can also see all of the ratings for the sports books, as I mentioned earlier. We appreciate you being with us today, and leave your comments down below. Tell us what you think. Thumbs up, thumbs down. We appreciate the feedback. Alongside Joe Fortenbaugh and Matt Brown, my name's Dave Farah. Thank you for listening and watching along with the Play Action Podcast.